in D.C. here. We got some UFO stuff.
You don't know what you're looking at.
What's driving that thing? It's not a space alien.
Aliens. It's unidentified.
There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are.
And there's the man himself, Obama, who is controlling the U.S. government as we speak, or at least the presidency. Politico had an article that they published a couple days ago, on the 2nd of May. It was headlined, "The UFO briefings on Capitol Hill have begun. Lawmakers aren't impressed." Let's see what it says. Lawmakers receiving the latest secret briefings on UFOs say national security agencies still aren't taking seriously the reports of highly advanced aircraft of unknown origin violating protected airspace. Members of the Senate Intelligence and Armed Services Committees received classified progress reports in recent weeks on a series of new data collection efforts the Pentagon and spy agencies are now required to pursue to more rigorously investigate reports of UFOs. 3 people with direct knowledge confirmed. But some leading sponsors of recent legislation want more analysts and surveillance systems dedicated to determining the aircraft's origin, and not just more reports of their existence. It's funny, these lawmakers or sponsors of recent legislation are saying basically like, okay, we get it. People are seeing things. All right, we keep getting reports of people seeing things, but we need more hard evidence. We need more surveillance of the skies. So convenient. I mean, are they building Skynet? The excuse being we need more surveillance, to determine what these unidentified flying objects are. Yeah, we're admitting that they exist. All right, but now to move forward, we need more harder evidence. Let's surveil the sky a little more, and to much of the UFO community's cheering, they're probably like, yeah, let's definitely spy, because we'll see things. We'll definitely start seeing things. Maybe they should make public the entire, air spectrum and other, frequencies. That would be interesting. If the whole public knew of, or were able to monitor, all the things going on in our airspace, in different frequencies as well. Anyway, one of those lawmakers is Kirsten Gillibrand, a member of both committees who has called the phenomenon an urgent issue and for the first time is expressing her public dissatisfaction at the response. Quote, Senator Gillibrand believes that the DOD needs to take this issue much more seriously and get in motion, said one of her aides, who requested anonymity in order to discuss private conversations. Quote, they've had ample time to implement these important provisions, and they need to show us that they are prepared to address this issue in the long term. The congressional briefings come 4 months after Congress passed the National Defense Authorization Act, requiring the Pentagon to create the Anomaly Surveillance and Resolution Office. Anomaly Surveillance and Resolution Office. So, yeah, okay. We have a part of the government, that part of the Pentagon, with anomaly surveillance, which means they're going to surveil the anomalous, the strange things, the paranormal, the supernatural. I mean, talk about science fiction world and Bible prophecy world. The office, which is supposed to be fully operational by June, was granted the authority to pursue, quote, any resource, capability, asset, or process to investigate unidentified aerial phenomena, the now widely accepted nomenclature for UFOs. Okay, so this leads me to believe, or speculate, not believe, speculate, that perhaps some of these Russian oligarchs in their assets, they're hiding like, I don't know, space rock or something on these boats or these yachts. I wouldn't put it past these Russian oligarchs hiding stuff in their assets. And that's part of the seizing is the anomalous surveillance, resolution office saying like, hey, we're taking your stuff. But in reality, it's like, yeah, we're taking not just your yacht. We're taking that alien artifact that you've been holding on board. Just speculation, not saying that that's true or anything. The Pentagon Office is supposed to be developing an, quote, intelligence collection and analysis plan to gain as much knowledge as possible regarding the technical and operational characteristics, origins, and intentions of unidentified aerial phenomena, according to the legislation. That means identifying people across the government, quote, to respond rapidly to incidents or patterns of observations. The bill, signed into law by President Joe Biden, also required an annual report and semi-annual briefings for semi-annual briefings for Congress, including descriptions of all UAP incidents, such as those, quote, associated with military nuclear assets, including strategic nuclear weapons and nuclear-powered ships and submarines. To respond to Congress's direction, Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks directed the creation of an airborne object identification and management synchronization group to oversee the stepped-up effort and establish the permanent UFO office required by Congress. Okay, among its tasks is to standardize UAP incident reporting across the military and collect and analyze more intelligence. Again, this is, it's strange because the way we are getting disclosure is not necessarily what everyone hoped was some kind of like UFO on the White House lawn and the alien coming out and shaking hands with, wouldn't that be great? A big gray alien meeting Joe. They hug it out. They fist bump, or they elbow bump because he doesn't want to give him Earth germs. Anyway, where was I going with that? So the disclosure isn't that. Unfortunately, it would be much more entertaining. It's more so, okay, we know these things are real, but we can't just reveal this stuff. We need official bureaucracy. We need the red tape so that we can establish governance, and then we can spoon feed the information to the public, but do so officially because it is being decreed by the government. And so that's what's really fascinating about this. All these different branches and groups and the things being created, these councils and stuff, and they have to brief Congress, and so they're taking it seriously, but by creating all of these they're spinning up all these different things, it is ripe for abuse of higher powers, and beyond, talking principalities and powers, but also just it being the propaganda arm in creating events in the public, creating things that can sway public opinion towards other countries, perhaps. There's all kinds of different things, because we're talking about, ultimately, in my opinion, I think we're talking about the revealing of some pretty advanced technology. And, some people will suggest it as some sort of free energy, or, and there's going to be this quote unquote revolution, this fourth industrial revolution, where everybody abandons a lot of the traditional ways in which energy was captured and used, and they're going to move to this new infrastructure. It's going to create this, I don't know, like a quasi-Atlantis atmosphere, and that's why we're seeing all the gathering of the materials, and it's causing the disconnect that people have. A lot of people, and the normies in the public have, concerning the narratives of climate change and stuff like that. They're being broken. Like, they can't compute with certain things that are happening with the building of this infrastructure. For example, in the last episode, we talked about how the UN, they're supporting this effort to mine gold out of the Pacific Ocean, but it's environmentally challenging or not environmentally. I mean, it is sort of, I think it gets, I don't remember the reason why the climate people were upset, but it upset the climate people because they're like, oh, you're causing more harm to the earth long term, but the reason why they're doing it is to get all the gold to help build the more clean energy stuff. So, they're having this, mental breakdown because they're like, yeah, you've been telling us to do this. We want to try to build better stuff, and now you're freaking out. So anyway, that's sort of a side note. In any case, back to this here. The whole concept being that they're creating the infrastructure, they're creating the groups that will be the mouthpiece to officially disclose things about this technology, these crafts. I mean, what else could this be? You know, I mean, I'm sure they can just string along hey, it's nothing. There's nothing going on for a while. But at a certain point, I mean, there's probably going to be some events and this is another narrative that I've heard discussed amongst the more fringy conspiracy-minded people is that, you know, different nations already have control of this technology or have some kind of version of the technology implemented into some kind of either weaponry or craft or something. And they're kind of doing the who's going to go first, the game of chicken kind of thing, you know, where someone's going to reveal it and, you know, they're at a stalemate because they don't want to be the first ones. But, you know, they're sort of looking at each other like, okay, when are we going to start busting out the new weaponry and the new systems? So anyway, let's keep going here. Let's see. The department continues to brief Congress on our efforts regarding unidentified aerial phenomenon, including our progress in standing up to airborne object identification and management synchronization group in accordance with the fiscal 2022 National Defense Authorization Act. Susan Goff, a department spokesperson, told Politico in a statement, quote, "I cannot comment on specific engagements," she added. Expanding investigations of UAPs will require dedicating far more resources and personnel to the task, military and intelligence experts say. But some members of Congress and their staff are beginning to air their dissatisfaction with the progress in making that happen. Florida Senator Marco Rubio, the top Republican on the intelligence panel, also believes the Pentagon is not aggressively carrying out Congress's direction. That's the other thing. Why would don't they want this? Why are they slowing it down? Maybe it's because, like, slow your horses. We'll put Joe on that UFO and have him miraculously float down to the ground. And then, you know, his approval rating will go back up. But we can't do that yet. We need to slow down. Quote, "Rubio is definitely frustrated," said one of the senator's aides, who was not authorized to speak publicly. Quote, "They are not moving fast enough, not doing enough, not sharing enough." Quote, "The administration is aware of the concerns," he added. "It is not at the level it needs to be." Others are more critical, accusing the Pentagon of hiding information from Congress. Quote, "I don't trust the Department of Defense to get this right since leadership there has always been part of a cover-up," said Rep. Tim Burchett of Tennessee, a member of the House Transportation Aviation Subcommittee. Quote, "It is clear from the public evidence that we don't have full control of our airspace," added Burchett, whose district includes Oak Ridge National Laboratory, where there have been numerous reports of UFO sightings over the decades. Quote, "That's a national security issue, and it's also unacceptable." 5 current and former military intelligence officials and contractor personnel privy to the deliberations who were not authorized to speak publicly told Politico they believe real progress is being made to compel agencies to take a more proactive approach and also be more transparent. I keep seeing that word everywhere. More transparent about what they might know about UFO sightings and technologies. Okay, so maybe whoever this group is, maybe they're the ones that have it. Oh, the country would melt down if it came out and the Democrats had the UFO technology. Can you imagine the craziness that would? You know, movie theme scenario. The Democrats discover the alien technology and they have it, and they come out with it, and the Republicans and their guns, this old century technology. Fight for the right for freedom, but they get destroyed by the alien technology. Oh no, this is not going in the direction we were all hoping for. Because if you look at history, folks, and I say this, kind of making fun and joking, but if you look at history, who wins those wars? Who wins? Who gets to be the controllers of a generation? It's the ones who, especially more recently, it's the ones who harness the technology better than or before their enemies, their perceived usually geographical enemies. So just thinking out loud, folks. And, this is a very interesting segue to our next story because part of I got two things. One, they don't want things to happen too quickly because, there's still some messaging that needs to happen. They got to tell the aliens more about us, according to WionNews.com. That's WION News.com. NASA to send naked pictures of humans to space in hope of attracting aliens. And it's really the people who understand the Genesis 6 worldview of the sons of God in the Old Testament, B'nai Ha Elohim, seeing the daughters of men, the daughters of Adam, seeing them as taking them as wives, and then having children, the giants, the Nephilim. In the context of such mythology, let's call it, this is strange that NASA is like, hey, aliens, check out our birthday suits. Here we are. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. This is the weirdest thing. It's kind of, I suppose I can understand the sort of logic of like, hey, here we are as God made us, right? But there's a reason why there is shame and we cover ourselves, right? There's a whole narrative there of what happened back in the garden. But, let's ignore that. Let's just let the aliens see our whole situation there. So anyway, that, and I do want to just to bridge to the next story here. This is an old article from Columbia Daily Tribune, and it was published back in May of 2014. So that's 8 years ago now. My gosh, time goes by so quickly. But the headline was UFO accounts are journalists' stuff of dreams. And it documents this aerospace engineer named Tom Keller, who wrote an article for the Mutual UFO Network's journal that said Ben Rich, who was the lead at Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works in the 80s and early 90s, I believe. He led the development of the U-2, the F-117, also worked on the F-104 and the A-12 SR-71, Blackbird, and F-22. So he was the guy doing the Skunk Works stuff, sort of the more experimental stuff. And so this guy, Tom Keller, had an opportunity to, sit there. I think it was like a little lecture he did or something like that. And he was able to ask him a question. But more on Tom Keller here, who's worked as a computer systems analyst for NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, quoted Rich as saying the following. And here's where it's interesting. It's several quotes that are very, tickling of the ears, so to speak. It's very sensational kind of claims about taking an act of God. Oh, so let's just go through a couple of these because, it's important to at least read two of them, I think. First, I'll read this one. We already have the means to travel among the stars, but these technologies are locked up in black projects, and it would take an act of God to ever get them out to benefit humanity. Anything you can imagine, we already know how to do it. Anything you can imagine. What was the reason why God divided the languages at the Tower of Babel? It's because people can do anything they imagined to do. And part of that was building the tower and to, reach heaven and dethrone God and all this kind of stuff. I mean, pretty intense stuff. And so there you go. That technology apparently is harnessed once again, or had always existed, and is once again maybe touched by humans or privileged human plus people, which is part of the transhumanist agenda. He also said, we now have technology to take ET home. No, it won't take someone's lifetime to do it. There's an error in the equations. We know what it is. We now have the capability to travel to the stars. First, you have to understand that we will not get to the stars using chemical propulsion. Second, we have to devise a new propulsion technology. What we have to do is find out where Einstein went wrong. And this is a quote that I want to highlight. Quote, when Rich was asked how UFO propulsion worked, he said, quote, "Let me ask you, how does ESP work? Extrasensory perception, ESP." The questionnaire responded with, "All points in time and space are connected." Rich then said, "That's how it works." So UFO propulsion works, according to Ben Rich, who was head of Skunk Works and worked on all kinds of secret aircraft. According to him, UFO propulsion works via extrasensory perception.